to A Horrible Time with Anth.
That's me. And Pebble Dash.
That's me. Hey Bab, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good, thank you. What are we doing this episode?
This episode, we are interviewing the amazing Paul Aleksandr.
Oh, that's exciting.
So exciting.
This was such a good interview. He spoke about so many cool different things.
Yeah.
Hi, Gorge.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. Pretty good. I've just gone very good to pretty good to I'm okay. Yeah. I'm alive. Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of all we can ask for just now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's that's been the most optimistic someone can who's living a queer experience, I think.
Yeah. Nothing to do with the pandemic, just being queer.
Just being queer, yeah.
That's enough, yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Paul.
I am Paul Aleksandr. I am, I guess, primarily a drag artist, but drag is sort of my vessel for doing all sorts of bits and pieces, performing, organising events, like drag ones, theatre drag ones, or murder mysteries. I sort of like doing crafting. I make little creepy creatures, life modelling. All sorts of little things, scare acting as well, which I adore doing. But yeah, I'm a drag artist that likes a little bit of the macabre, a bit of gothic vibes mixed with a bit of glitter and all sorts of oddities, things that basically, if I enjoy it, if it makes me laugh and is a bit weird, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect way to be, really, isn't it?
Definitely.
So we obviously have had a scroll through the Instagram and the TikToks and such. And I think one of the things that stands out to me the most is the glitter.
Yeah.
Where did your love of glitter come from?
There's a lot of glitter.
There is a lot of glitter, and you know what? I don't even know I love it. I'm not sure if it's just a sort of self-imposed punishment for something I can't remember doing. I think, perhaps it's from that phrase, you can't polish a turd, but you can put glitter on it, and putting glitter just covers up all sorts of problems. But I think I think it started having a beard, not wanting to shave a beard off because I hate shaving daily. I've got darker skin, it's thicker. I've got darker hair. The hair grows through quick. I don't like shaving. Mm-hmm. So putting glitter on it just seemed an answer. And then that just sort of grew from there. And that means it's probably filling my lungs along with all the talc. And I'll probably deal with that later in life.
Glitter lung and clown lung is coming to us all.
Yes,
I know. Yeah. I'm not worried about that. You know what? We've been through worse.
Oh, God, haven't we just? I think one of the things for me, I don't know about for you, Anth, one of the things for me that I love about the glitter and is, as you said, you kind of lean towards the macabre and things like that. But I think the glitter's universal. Everybody loves a bit of glitter.
Yes.
When they see glitter, when we see shiny. So it almost gives you permission to go really west with the kind of darkness because it's got some glitter on it.
Yeah, I think that's so important as well. You know, it's not deliberately set out like that, but it's something I've definitely become aware of. It makes my drag, which is a little more gender fucky than straight queen or king, quite accessible, relatable, because if I'm in a smoking area, people can say, oh my God, I love your beard. And the rest of me could be quite odd or slightly different to the norm. Even if it's something as subtle as, chest hair showing, which, some people still find odd in drag, or if it's an entirely gothic-y, macabre look. So yeah, I think it draws people in. And then once you've drawn someone in, you can then present to them or offer them something a bit weirder and they're more likely to accept it. But I really do like sparkly things, and I like mixing up the glitters and getting the right tone and shades and whatnot, and then, really thinking how I'll use it. I find that fun. I like the texture it can have, thicker bits and chunkier bits, and you know what? There's nothing more beautiful than standing in a boiling hot shower, gently washing it away. That's just feeling it disappear. That's just, it's a beautiful moment, isn't it? That de-dragging. We love that.
It truly is
Yeah,
the best
Pebble,
moment.
talk about that.
I mean, for
Yeah.
me, I love wiping off my makeup, but my favourite part is scrubbing the life out of my eyebrows with alcohol to get the glue out. Nothing's more satisfying than freeing my eyebrows when I'm done.
Oh, bless you. Do you know what? Early lockdown, I shaved mine off. I thought, I'll give it a go. I see what it's like. I can't go back. It's just so easy to put eye makeup on. Like, it's just a smooth palette there.
Yeah.
It's, oh, God.
I grew my eyebrows back during the first lockdown because I was just sick of looking like an egg. Because I'd shaved my head. Well, I'd shaved my head. I had no beard because obviously I do shave my face for drag. And I did look like a hard-boiled egg with eyes. So I grew my eyebrows back. And I'm so glad I did. I look slightly more human. Not much, but slightly more human.
Yeah, it's the little things. It's you know what? It's one of the first times I recognised the power of a face with no eyebrows. It was in you know that little known film Lord of the Rings. There's what's oh God, the King of Rohan and
Theoden.
Theoden.
Yeah.
And you know his little weird assistant, was it Grima?
Grima Wormtongue.
Yeah. One of the things they did to give him that sort of uncanny valley was to give him no eyebrows.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I sort of was when I saw him when it came out, I was like, why does he look so odd apart from, the greasy hair and the makeup and the general hideous demeanor of being a bit mean and whatever. But it was like, it was just little things like that. And I thought, I really like that subtlety. And I think, but also I'm also recognized, I think that's why some people can see faces without eyebrows and stuff and just be a bit, because it does suit some people, but I don't know if it does suit me. In drag, I don't mind, obviously, but out of drag, I'm not sure. My hair's quite dark and visible, so without them, there's a bit of a bit of a visual, obvious gap in my face.
Very large question. Obviously, horror spans so many different kinds of media. But what would you say was your favourite kind of horror? It could be books, movies, whatever, and why?
So I definitely, I do love a lot of video game. Video games is my longest standing love. But there's so many video games, books, and films. When I think of the question, I immediately think of films more than anything. I think I love space ones, but there's not that many of them. So like Alien, Event Horizon, I love them because I love space and I love those kind of weird horrors. There's two of my favorites. I've got two. I mean, why be orthodox and have one? One is Candyman. I love that. I love the music. I think it's the theme tune. I think it's Philip Glass. It might have composed it. I love that. I love the story of it, the lore. I like the setting because it's kind of set based on some elements of true stories. The Chicago projects it's set in and the lore around them and stuff. I really like it, and I find it. When I saw it when I was very young, probably when you're not meant to see such things, I just felt so sorry for Candyman himself. Who's it? Tony Todd, who plays him, because
the icon Tony Todd.
Yeah, he's kind of not just a villain. He's a villain that's been done wrong so badly. His backstory, no spoilers. The way he was killed and the racism of it. And I was always drawn to that. I always felt so sad and sorry for him. And I thought all the characters in the world it's set in is pretty bleak and sad. And maybe that started my sort of love, my affinity for the villains, the bad guys, which I do like. I think The Shining is the other one that, again, I saw when I was young. And I just loved how mad Jack Nicholson played him, and the hotel and all the weird elements and the music. Again, I love music and sound design, and the music was just so weird and alien and unsettling. But yeah, I think they're some of my favorites. I guess I like quite a lot of classic ones a bit more than newer ones, but I still love so many new things. I've got all the time in the world to sit down and binge like this. Saw how many ones there are. I love Jigsaw as well. I think Jigsaw. I was kind of saying to my flatmate ages ago, I was like, I can see Jigsaw's point. I get what he's trying to do.
Jigsaw, to me, genuinely, Jigsaw was like the original Dexter, and everybody loves Dexter.
Yeah,
I suppose. So.
I mean, Dexter was going killing people who had done wrong, and fair enough, Jigsaw was more moralistic, and morals kind of can be balanced or outbalanced. But no, I got his point. I love the Saw movies. I don't think they're the best made movies. I don't think they're the best acted movies.
Yeah.
But the story and the concept and the incessant kills in different ways. They've got so many movies. There's like 7 of them, and people are killed in different ways in every movie, which I find entertaining.
It is. They just and the way the story just somehow grows and grows, and you think, oh, okay, well, I'll just buy into that. I'll just accept that. I did hear a sort of sigh of resignation, like, oh my God, here they go, bang on about Saw again.
Oh, that was me. I'm not a big fan of Saw. Like, I don't mind the first 2. The rest after are just like, I don't know. It's not horror to me. It doesn't strike me as like horrific. Well, it is horrific, but it doesn't strike me as like a horror film. It's more like the torture porn thing.
Yeah, I mean, I get that entirely because it's but I get that. Yeah, I get that entirely. But I think you'll find you're wrong.
Get 'em.
They can't. That's the thing. They can't really be defended, can they?
No,
because they are what they are.
Yeah.
There's lots of films I just love, but video games as well. You know what? It's weird. I can watch whatever film and I rarely sort of get scared or spooked out. I can read whatever books, but video game horror things I don't like playing because I think like, well, you want me to press forward on a controller knowing that there's something up there. Why should I? And so I love just watching playthroughs of them. I love watching
it's
playthroughs.
More immersive, isn't it? It's like you're right there. You're deciding what's going to happen. Whereas with like watching horrors and stuff, like we were speaking about this last night. Like we're not scared of horrors now. It's like rare when you get scared of a horror film.
Unless our cat Argento jumps at you when there's something scary about to happen, which is exactly what happened last night.
Oh dear.
He's terrible. But yeah, absolutely. When you're in charge of the game, you're in control, and it's that control thing. But when you're watching the films, the control is completely removed. You're watching someone else's idea. And even though a game is the same, you're still watching someone else's idea and concept because you have to make that move. I think it's more intense. Yeah.
And there might be, you might be sitting at the start of a 15-hour journey of that sort of endless horror. And it's kind of, in a way, I really like watching playthroughs, whether it's old games like Amnesia or more recent Resident Evil, because it's like this, they could be like watching, if you've got a good player, they could be watching sort of cinema, a 10-hour film. And I find it really enjoyable, really fun.
Do you have any favorite horror games?
I actually really like the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Oh,
I thought
fantastic.
That was because I remember. So I had, I used to have, when I had my original PlayStation, I had a demo disc from the official PlayStation magazine that had Resident Evil 2.
Your age is showing.
It was, I bought it only a couple of years ago. It was, and it had the demo of Resident Evil 2. I remember playing that, and I just the fucking tank controls, which add to the horror of it. But I don't, and it's just like, well, that's one way to get around it. And remember that, and then watching the remake, I was just like, they've done a good job of that. Like they've kept the spirit of it, but they've kind of, I think, kept quite a lot of the I guess the world of Raccoon City and all of that life. So I really like that. But there's some classics like Amnesia and stuff that I just love, and they're sort of comfort views now. If I go back and watch them, oh, let's just go watch this in the darkness.
It's a nostalgia thing as well, though, isn't it? When you watch those old games, even if it is horror, like we've just recently done a deep dive into the original Halloween movie.
Yes,
and that for me, that's like nostalgia for me. Like if I'm thinking about childhood or like missing my folks or whatever, because obviously they're in Scotland, like I'll watch Halloween. And weirdly, I know.
I was missing sort of just living in Scotland, and I thought I'd think of sort of mad maniac, sort of going around slashing people, cutting people for no reason, and creating a general sense of dread in the world. And I felt at home again.
Exactly. I mean, that is Pebble. That is me.
Yeah, true. You said such a good thing about Halloween, though, when you said it's. This is showing that I've listened to it. But when you said that it's timeless, and I never thought about that before, like it doesn't show its age by the setting as much.
Yeah.
And I thought that was that. When I heard that, I just thought, fuck's sake, how could I have missed that? It's so, like, it makes so much sense as to why it sort of stands up. It's a self-contained thing that works in whatever time and environment.
Yeah, because there's certain movies, isn't there? There's movies like, what's the one about the cell phones? And there's a movie, it might be called Pulse. Where it takes over the cell phones and stuff, and because it's so focused on technology of that time, it's unrelatable. If you watching it now, because it's all like flip phones and stuff from when we were younger, it's kind of like, oh well, that wouldn't happen now. Like this is odd. Whereas Halloween, the clothing throughout is dated, but clothing comes back around continuously. Just now, how old are you, Paul? If you don't mind me asking.
I am. I don't know.
Well, I'm 35 and Anth's 33.
Yes.
Yeah. So we kind of have noticed just now the 90s is like a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all these little like e-boys and twinks and e-girls are like, oh, I'm so like 90s. And it's weird because I look at it and I think we didn't look like that in the 90s.
No.
Do you know what I mean? But we done it with the 80s. I was fascinated with the 80s in like my teens and early 20s.
Yeah.
And it's weird seeing all those kind of 90s kids. And like I was in a conversation yesterday with one of my friends, Tesco, a drag queen for the Northeast. And she was asking about B movies. And then sent a list of movies that were made in like 2013. And I was like, these aren't B movies. Like B movies, the whole point of a B movie was it was a double feature and it was the B side, like with cassette tapes back in the day. It was the B side to the main movie. And it just shook me that I'm like, God, you think that's old, and you think that's proper B movies. It's just bizarre.
Because at B movies, I think, 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe Rocky Horror taking the piss out of that kind of vibe at its peak. Oof, gosh, I'm glad I'm in my early 20s. 90s, that's it. The thing is, when you think of the 80s, there is something there is like a massive change to something very garish in fashions and vibes, and music and stuff. And the 90s, it's really, it's hard to pin that one down. I kind of think of Friends and Spice Girls.
Beige. I think beige. Like everybody wore knit cardigans and like baggy jeans. Because really in the UK it was Britpop and sugar pop. That was like the two kind of most opposing fields, and it was obviously led by music as the UK so often is.
Yeah. And
it was literally like bubblegum pop.
And they're not very out there, really.
Yeah. It's so weird. So when I see all these kids now, like with flames on their jeans, and like, I'm so 90s. And I'm like, no one in the 90s wore those unless they were famous. Get them off.
You've just become old man shouting at the sky.
I absolutely have. Absolutely have. And usually it's when I'm working at the bar and I'm stood at the door and some twink comes up and like, oh my God, do you remember these from when you were young? And then I set them on fire.
Oh, that's nice. That's cute.
Serves them right.
Yeah.
So would you say that horror's influenced your creativity?
Yeah, a hell of a lot. I think it's influenced my mindset. And I don't, in a completely non-conscious way, I just think whether it's like the motifs or whether it's in the visuals or just I don't know, just exposing the weird side of things. I just find that really enjoyable. I'm drawn to it. I'm just so intrinsically drawn to things that are a bit off, a bit uncanny valley, a bit creepy. And that just channels in my humor, in my approach, perhaps because I'm comfortable with it. I'm very comfortable with those things and I'm not sort of scared or alienated or worried by them. And so I just find great comfort in them. And maybe I can see behind the horror, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see what makes it tick and what makes people tick and how it makes people feel unsettled or whatever they makes them feel. And I think that's come out in how I perform. Not all the time, but maybe in what I do, how I perform. Like you said, I like maybe glitter along with something darker. It's like when I craft my weird teddies, I think they're cute, but other people say they're a bit weird, and I'm just like, oh, well, each to their own.
They are cute.
I enjoyed your Hello Spider. That was cute.
Yeah, it's so cute with his little legs and its cute little
definitely
human teeth and things. Just imagine it like you're asleep and it's scuttling about on the floor. Aww. And you just know it's like gathering mites to eat or something, and it's just happy.
I mean, that's not really how I would sell it. Yeah. I've literally just sat and thought, I'm not having one of those in my room.
Yeah, and it's that you've never seen it move or heard it move, but you do it. At night it does. At night you hear a shuffling and you think, oh, it's just making a nest in a corner. I find that really sweet and endearing and just kind of fun. And that's why, I like horror. I like scare acting. I find it so fun. It's so enjoyable. And maybe that ties into it, that because I'm okay at the behind the scenes of horror, that I perhaps then am drawn to it more and more as to inflicting it upon others.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about the haunt acting?
So like in case anyone does or doesn't know, scare acting is just kind of, working at scare mazes, attractions, where you just characterizing or dressing up in whatever way and creeping people out. It could be, I like it to be quite nuanced and clever and switched on. And one of the greatest people who I've worked for and with is the drag artist in Birmingham called Gavina. They're so clever and switched on, and they're incredibly good at scare acting and horror. They make their own scare mazes. But one of the things they had was no boos, rahs, or ahs, no jump scares. It's we're beyond that. We can make people scared by just the subtleties, the presence, the noises you make, the unearthly noises, the look you have, the things you can say, characterizing it. And I really love that. So whether that's been a mad hillbilly or a Jack the Ripper or just a zombie type thing or whatever it is, I really enjoy it because people buy into it and you feed off the reaction and you adapt your reaction to them. You can pick out the person, if there's a group of them going through a maze, you can pick out the person immediately who is going to be the most scared because maybe they're cowering a bit. Yeah. You're immediately drawn, I'm going to get you. You're in control of the whole situation because you know what is where. They're walking to the unknown. They can't necessarily see things. And people buy into it. And I love that. I love that people buy into, it's a bit one of the things like when you watch any horror thing, it's not real or that's makeup or whatever. But people accept a degree of that is the new reality that they're going to face. And I like that. I find it really enjoyable and it's a good challenge. And, you get people who don't want to enjoy it, who maybe you've got the stereotypical tough lad. But what I love about them is that I won't give an inch. I won't sort of break out with them. I won't give them that. They won't get as much out of it, but I won't sort of be deterred. I will play it on a level they don't like, which may be almost, sometimes it could be casual flirtation, whatever makes them uncomfortable. I will do whatever it takes. But it's a very fun thing. It's really fun. And the great thing I had during lockdown is I did bits and pieces with a company called Area 51. They had a sort of drive-through outdoors terror maze out in the woods and fields.
Ooh.
And it was incredibly good. Cars would drive around. It would take about 20 minutes, and there were just stations along the way, some in the woods, some by the lake, of just different things that would happen.
This is amazing.
It was so good. Like, it was so well done, and it was a great challenge because you're outdoors the whole time in the dark, and you've got basically between you and the people, you've got a fucking car, you've got windows and whatnot. So it was interesting to see how you can make a totally different kind of scare. But I liked it. It was really good fun. You know, some bits, you know, there's one bit in the middle of the woods where they're stopped, but there's just a gate where they're stopped. And then the mad hillbillies come out and they're on quad bikes with fake chainsaws, you know, proper chainsaws with the chain taken off so they still make the noise and smoke. And they're on quad bikes with fake real flamethrowers and stuff. And the car gets doused in water, but it looks like it's petrol coming out of sort of jerry can. And it's just such amazing. It was so fun, and it was a great thing. It was a great thing to do in the pandemic. It really rationalised the human experience. So I enjoy it. It could be good seasonal fun work.
Yeah, it definitely sounds amazing. It's a shame because I love watching videos of people in haunts. Nothing makes me happier than watching people get scared. And uncomfortable are two of my favourite emotional reactions in the world. But where are the haunts that you work in mostly based? Because I've never really, other than like Aneth Castle up here, I've never really seen many haunts in the UK that I've heard of myself.
So the ones I've done are mostly around the Midlands, around here. There seems to be a whole world of them. I kind of feel they're like an unsung hero of the horror industry, because there's quite a few of them. I'm sure in some places they sort of dwindle out and there's hardly any, and there's some ones that are a bit more known, sort of like at the large theme parks. But a lot of them are independent. They pop up, and there's some well-known. So my voice is going there. That's just the parasite coming up for air. There's some well-known. There's ones like Tully's and stuff that are more known, but you may have to travel for them, and they can often pop up for the season, the sort of Halloween season, for a couple of weeks or whatever. They're worth traveling to. There are some really good ones, and people can pay good money to go see them. But I totally know that there'll be places where they just don't exist, and it's weird. They can pop up in the most odd of places, whether it's in a town centre somewhere, or a disused mansion, or out in the woods or fields. But it could be good money, and people can really spend money making these things quite fun. The first one I worked at was Twisted Attractions, and it was in a gay village in Birmingham. It was sort of, there's an empty sort of lot where Gavina and their team built this sort of scare maze. There was like 4 kind of huge buildings. One was an asylum. Inside it was dark corridors, flashing lights, and it was just an asylum with beds. There was even a padded room where you crawled on the floor to come into this uncomfortably small padded room. And there was a guy in there called Chunk, and he was a giant baby in there. He's a big guy who was just in he's a big bald baby with a nappy on and what looked like shit all over him.
Oh my God.
And then another room was a bit like Saw, where another place where it's just going through different Saw mazes. And another one was Victorian London, full of smoke and sounds of being in Victorian London. And you go through sort of the streets and sewers, and I was sort of Jack the Ripper at the end. So there's a lot of creativity. If you can go to one, seek them out. But I don't know what would be up near you. I might have a little Google. Might have a little bit Google or Bing it, see what happens.
Bang. God.
Bing it. Yeah. Like, come on, they need it, please.
They really do. Bless them, they're trying.
I know.
So what does horror mean to you? And that can be literally or figuratively.
I think it can be something that leaves an impression on someone or changes someone in a way they're possibly unsettled or uncomfortable with. There's a real art to it. Like, it could be subtle. I think it's well beyond just being blood and gore. It could be really, really psychological or unsettling or very almost whimsical and gentle, but it just holds a mirror to fears or the unknown, or exposes things that makes some sort of sense react, whether it's your sort of your visual or auditory ones. So it's hard to pin down, but I think if it just makes people react, not unreact, whatever that might mean, to whatever level of discomfort, or sort of being unsettled, or scared, I guess. Yeah, it's a tough one, that. But I think if for me, the more it goes into their psyche, deeper into the mind of them, in a way that they possibly don't want, then it's kind of getting more to the core of horror.
Yeah.
You're kind of really exposing something that that possibly they don't want to, but if they're watching the film or game or scare acting, whatever, that it's kind of tapping into that, and they're kind of consenting to that weird process. And some people enjoy that, really enjoy being scared like that, or having that done to them. It kind of gives them a thrill, or just
thrill seeking,
excites them. Who knows?
Yeah, it's almost, the way you're describing it is almost like it's like a primal thing. Like it's such an innate part of people that you, especially doing the scare acting, you kind of have the luxury of bringing out and releasing that part of someone. Yeah,
it sounds almost. I'm trying to think if it's more psychopathic or sociopathic when you say you like making people scream. But when you tap into that, like, there'll be times where, after you finish, say, around a scare actor, you'd be like, oh my God, did you see that group? Yeah, they were screaming. Oh, it was so good. It's like, oh yeah, we really made them wet themselves. Oh, that one's going to be traumatized. Fantastic. We had, there were moments that I think really illustrate how powerful it can be. Is say in the one I did in the autumn, you might have a car approaching. So one of the stations I was at, it had it's sort of one side of the road is just endless churned up fields with scary scarecrows now and again. Then there's a big lake, and there was just a big digger crossing with its arm crossing the road, and there's just a big stop sign. So they're almost approaching in pitch black with just their car lights, and then like one of us would just sort of step out looking a bit horrific in front of them, and they're not expecting anything. They don't know what to expect. And when you hear slight screams or like, oh my God, coming from the car straight away, and it's 10 feet away from you, you're like, we've got this one, lads. This is going to be fun. And that really taps into what people can do for themselves. Like, horror is something where it elicits that reaction from people, or plants the seed. And I don't know why people like being scared or like feeling what they do. Maybe it just sort of uncovers parts of their mind and experience that need a bit of fuel. Who knows? I'm sure there's some fantastically long and uninteresting PhDs on the subject.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The kind of follow-up to that question is why do you think we, as people within the queer community, have such an affinity for horror?
I think because we're psychologically damaged, we're against God, we're against nature, and we are sinful creatures who need to be scared by hellish images. Thank you.
Welcome to, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I will be disappearing to Twitter to be angry on it. I don't know, maybe he almost has a cliche, maybe it's where quite often outsiders are rejected from things, we don't quite fit in very subconscious, subliminal ways, that having an enjoyment or appreciation, or at least having one foot in the side of things that are a bit odd, makes us more kin to that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. For many a queer person, they're not going through life with their eyes closed, because things we have to watch out. Very subtle things in life aren't set up to suit a lot of LGBTQ people. Therefore, we're kind of a bit more aware of things, and we've perhaps then allowed ourselves to tap into areas and subjects that others may not have, because they don't have to. And we may have then discovered things like horror and weird things, and found a little affinity or enjoyment. It makes us feel something, and feeling things that are positive in the sense that people can enjoy horror or they can enjoy thrill seeking is a nice thing. If you can feel something good, then you sort of pursue it. And if your life's a little bit shite at times, it's kind of draws you to pursue those things a little bit more. And maybe there's some truth in that. I don't know. I might just be rambling. I've just been reading.
No, not at all.
I just found that on Wikipedia. I don't know. What do you think? Because I've never quite known why people may be drawn to such things.
Well, it is the other. Like, I think that's why a lot of queer people are attracted to horror, because it's like highlighting the marginalized. It's like the other. Like, we can relate to the protagonist or the antagonist sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's very like, it reflects what a lot of queer people go through, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I think especially as so many sort of icons of queer people are the outsiders or the people defying something, and that could actually be the villains. Whether it's sort of the musical divas, you think, who whether it's like the Shirley Bassey's or Madonnas or the Gagas, who actually by just being women and a lot of them queer friendly, that makes them immediately an outsider no matter their success. Or when people just love the villains because perhaps we can see the human side to them if it is there, or their story. I
think queer people, I think growing up queer, we have a completely different view and understanding of humanity and what it is to be human. Kind of what Anne said, we've been othered. We are the other in kind of modern culture. We were always the other. It was the gays or people who are trans, or more common now is people not understanding people who are non-binary or don't fall into the sexual binary. It's always other. There has to be a different label for each kind of queer identity. Which is why I like to use the term queer, because I kind of use it as an all-encompassing umbrella for everybody, regardless of sexual or gender identity. But I think with horror specifically, again, kind of echoing what Anne said, and we've said it so many times on the podcast, people are going to be so bored of us now. Read a fucking book, though. Because we've been othered, we absolutely identify, I think, more commonly with the antagonist. It goes back to Disney movies. We all love Ursula. We all love Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
Maleficent.
It was always females who were actually kind of empowered, that we had, I feel like, because we understood misogyny on a different level for women, obviously, but we still were victims of misogyny as male presenting queer people or identifying as gay when we were younger. There's still a level of misogyny that we receive, and absolutely there's still a lot of misogyny within specifically the gay community. There's still a lot of misogyny there, but I think because it's something that we could relate to, it's why we love the Disney villains. And I think just as we grew up, we were able to identify more and more with antagonists in horror movies or horror TV shows or games. Generally, when I was a kid, I know Anne's the same. When we were young, we are both big gamers as well. We will seek out to play as a female character within a game.
Definitely.
We'll always pick the female, because for me, I love to see a female leading and being strong. And because until recently, there's not been a lot of queer characters or queer lead characters that you could play in games. We would go for the women. And it's just that it's looking for some semblance of what our experience is wherever we can find it. I think it's why a lot of different kind of queer communities across the world just now are pushing so much for Black trans lives, because we are kind of always the first ones to step up and say, actually, this is important, and then mainstream follows after. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. It sums up so much, just that connection that queer people, like I agree with you entirely. I'm very much, I love queer as a term. It just feels so right as an umbrella term for gender, for sexuality. Partly, this is a complete tangent, because the LGBTQ, which again, you know, I don't like it when people go, oh, alphabet soup and stuff. I'm just like, stop trying to be clever. That's not, you know, make it clever. If you're going to be clever, be clever. God damn it. I kind of like, you know, they're very different things, LGBTQ individually, but queer actually is a uniting term. And I really like that. And I love that I first came across it as queer theory as an academic subject. That's the first time I heard queer as a positive term. Many moons ago, obviously when I was very young.
Last year,
yeah. I saw it in a book just earlier. I don't like books, but, you know, I saw the word and I thought, I'll have that. But connection, yeah, I think there's definitely that connection that people can feel and find with characters and their stories and find what's relatable and standing up for the other side. And if you don't fit in, even in most subtle ways, you're immediately in a group of whoever else doesn't fit in. And I think generally people respond to that. It's very interesting these days because I think there's enough people in more privileged countries and places where who can, to be delicate saying this, who may be LGBTQ can actually end up being misogynist, racist and all of those things because they've got levels of comfort and privilege with their existence. You often find it more of maybe to throw out that phrase, which I find is overuse of the white cis gay male. But I think in the past, especially before people have been able to before gay people have had it as they have now, which in the West is actually not terrible for quite a few. In the past, I think it was much worse. You know, if you think back to when you see things like It's a Sin. And I think that's when the connections were really there. And we've kind of just kept that tradition going for the outsiders and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's why being visibly queer is still so important. And there's still people who are like, well, why do they have to come out? Why do we have to have gay pride? All of these kind of questions. And it's because it's important that we're still visible because we don't ever want to be the other again. All we've ever really wanted is to just be seen as everybody else. Yeah,
the minute it stops, sadly, is when things can just roll back. It's, you know, it's like pushing a boulder up a hill. If you stop, there's that risk. It's just going to start rolling back. And yeah,
exactly.
It's quite difficult and unfair in that way. Yeah, never mind, eh?
Oh, well.
Let's go back to the happy subject of horrors and murder and killing.
So, have you had any, obviously you've done your haunts and things like that, have you had any kind of supernatural or spooky experiences?
I don't think so. I'm not someone who, like, I'm quite an advocate of the Enlightenment, the scientific method and all of that sort of thing, because I'm kind of like, that's what delivered us the technology, the emancipation from slavery, serfdoms, and, you know, it allows us to talk. It allows me to talk into a weird bit of plastic here, and you can hear it hundreds of miles away. And so I'm kind of open-minded with paranormal things, but I'm very much like, if it's there, I want to see the wonderful proof and all of that. So I've never really had any experiences where I've been convinced of anything. Mentally, I've completely like enjoyed the mind games of taking part. You know, like I love the ideas of opening up the Egyptian tombs, you know, desecrating them, and you know, I love that, just desecrating 3,000-year-old tombs and a whole culture. But you know, like the curses and stuff like that, or going. I like urban exploration, so when I've legally, of course, snuck into abandoned buildings and found things, I'm like, I would love something weird to happen. But nothing quite has, I don't think.
I think I'm a massive believer in spirituality, that not necessarily spirituality in the sense of like religion, but being open to connecting with spirits, all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes like yourself, when you come from maybe a more scientific view, that's what is ingrained within yourself, it's hard to find the experiences because you look for them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think with me, so for instance, I've just always been open to it. So I've had few like different experiences, few and far between. But I think, yeah, if you go actively looking for it, you won't always necessarily find it. And I think anything can be rationalized. I'm not like a complete idiot. I think anything can be rationalized and logicalized, but I also think that's just because that's how we've been trained, is to rationalize and logicalize things. It falls into mental health, all this kind of stuff as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's applying basic principles of what are you trying to convince yourself of something, or are you trying to just explore something and see where it goes on its own sort of basis, and what it presents itself as. I mean, I don't know if I seek things out. I just kind of like being in those environments where it feels a bit fun.
Yeah.
Like like going to odd places. I've never been one that's. I kind of want the real things to happen. I remember when I was young, my gran used to always record. She had loads of VHS. That's video cassettes for the younger viewers out there. They were lumps of plastic that had thin strips of plastic that apparently worked. And when they didn't
People
work,
will literally not know what you're talking about.
No.
It's awful.
And half the time they didn't work. They were fuzzy, known as TikTok filter, and you'd have to press a tracking button.
Yeah.
And at the end, you'd have to press rewind and listen to your VCR player go a bit mental as it rewound it quicker and quicker. But my gran used to have loads of them, and she used to record I used to just watch them because there'd be all sorts of these sort of paranormal TV shows. I don't know where she found them and whatnot. And I used to lap that stuff up and love it and read all these conspiracy things and stuff. So I'm very much like, as things come about, it's like aliens. I love aliens and things like that. I don't think we haven't got, I believe the universe is too big for there not to be stuff out there and weird stuff out there. And I think physics is showing that things are too weird and odd for us not to just find out so much weird shit in the future. And so maybe perhaps in the absence of having certain experiences, that's why I like giving the scares, giving the spooks, and creating them, because in a way that makes them a sort of realness for people. But yeah, I'd love to. I mean, there's things I just want to do, like the horrors I love the most are psychological things, like being in a asylum. I'm obsessed with asylums. Oh God!
Have you ever seen oh my God, what is it called? Grave Encounters.
Grave Encounters. What's that one about? Tell me.
So it's a found footage film, which puts people off a lot. I love found footage, but it does put
like
a lot of people
footage,
off. Yeah. And they do like a most haunted style show. It's low budget, but it's one of the few movies in the past maybe 10 years that I got scared by, and the sequel is as good as the first one.
The thing is, when people say names of things or names of actors or things, my memory is very, let's say, damaged by experimentation. And I then have to see the visual thing and think, oh shit, yeah, I know who that is. It's like, Brad Pitt. Oh yes, oh that's that one. Yes, did that fighty clubby film. Yes. Grave Encounters. I probably have seen it if it's found footage and it's of that age, because I love found footage films. Ever since I saw like the Blair Witch, I was just like,
Blair Witch.
I wanted that to be true. That's like, I want that to happen. I love that kind of thing.
We tried to watch the Blair Witch 2 last night.
We did.
We watched it in the 90s or early 2000s when it came out. And my memory of the movie is that it was great. So it's the Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows. Yeah, I think we managed 20 minutes last night. So bad. So bad.
Soundtrack, though.
Right, well, I mean, it had someone who's cancelled at the start. His name comes from a beautiful Hollywood wonder and a cult founder. I'll let you figure it out. Really good soundtrack, but my God, people could not act in the late 90s and early 2000s. Just appalling.
It's like the democratization of filmmaking and stuff sometimes highlights limitations where ambition or doesn't quite equate the substance or something or other.
Absolutely.
I've just been looking up that film, as you've mentioned, The Grave Encounters. I definitely recognize some of these screenshots. This image, I mean, this is great for a podcast to talk about an image. But this image of that girl screaming,
yes.
I'm so drawn to that, because it's like, maybe that's why I love horror as well, because of the unanswered things. It opens the door to so much unknown, and I think it's really, I get excited by things I don't know in that way.
Yeah.
But that face, that's amazing. I absolutely love that.
Honestly, it's so good.
That black and white night cam of a girl back. I'll describe it for the viewers at home. She looks over her shoulder, her mouth prized open, and it's pitch black. Her eyes are all black with white sockets. She's abject horror. Oh, I love that. God, yeah. Google or Bing. Have I binged it? Oh my God, I have binged it. oh, that's nice. I'll get a bit more of my sponsorship from them.
Bing's had their one run of the day.
I know. You can imagine it's an old guy in a dusty room, and his computer's just lit up. The screen's just turned on. The results come up, and he's panicking. He's got to contact Bill Gates now, and who knows what he's going to say. But that's productivity up. That's 100% increase.
Absolutely.
Productivity. So, that's the shareholders will love that.
Have you got any performances of your own, or other drag artists or burlesque artists or anything? Because you obviously work, I feel like a lot of your work is within the artist realm as well.
Yeah.
Any other performances that you think we should check out? Any other performers that you think we should check out?
I've done the thing that I struggled with most probably for about a year before the pandemic is I never recorded much of what I did on stage. And then I realized I need to do that because the online is such a portfolio for that. And there's some really fun numbers that I've done that I really enjoyed. And I hope to relive them. There's one I did I like having the visuals and my musical. I like having, when I perform, I like having something, if it's going to be creepy, I like having a camp moment in the middle. I did one performance on stage. I was kind of dressed up as a sort of demonic priest thing. And I turned it into a digital drag video. And I really like it because halfway through I just turn into Spice Girls for a bit, then go back to the Rammstein, and it's really to the Rob Zombie and Rammstein mix, and it's really fun.
Yes.
I do like Dragula. I've met quite a few of the Dragula artists, and on a whole, they're actually very, very nice, grounded people who I think like you both or me sort of have an appreciation, a thankfulness for what they do. And I think I really like the sort of spooky performers or artists that actually care about horror. You can sort of tell in subtleties or overtly that they really care about the subject that they're sort of putting their feet into.
They don't want to take the piss out of it. They want to kind of
they're not kind of
show it.
Yeah, because they're not doing sort of. Oh, I like that. A love letter written in sort of blood or feces, whatever you fancy.
Exactly.
Both of them mixed together just to get that perfect dark red. It's not don't inject though, because that's you put that back into your system in the wrong way. Oh, you'll have trouble. You'll have the shits. Anyway, but yeah, like I like it when they've got a bit of, when there's a real passion behind it, because it then gives such authenticity. Like one of my favorite artists is Disasterina from Dragula.
Yeah.
Because they come across as just a bit unhinged, a bit random, a bit mental. And that's because they are. But they're also deeply, deeply clever and kind. They're so kind. They work so hard. If you message them, they will reply. They care so much, and they're so clever and so hardworking and industrious. And I just love that comes out in the most garish, strange, funny, bizarre ways. And I think they're literally marching to the beat of their own drums. And I love that.
Yes.
And there's artists across, that I sort of know, like one of the first drag artists about 6 years ago or so that really told me drag could be different when that's why I started it. One was Cheddar Gorgeous and the other was Dharmageddon. And Dharma, I love just because I started seeing them do video game references and stuff that I really like. And so there's people that I've sort of seen, like there's like Draven or someone I met in lockdown, Melancholia Blackwell, who
I know Melancholia, yeah.
They just have a love of the subject, and it makes them giddy and happy. And I love that purity in it.
Yeah.
And when you find out these are kind people, I'm just like, oh my God, these are like, the irony, spooky drag artists are the kindest ones. Is, you know, it's interesting that.
Absolutely. What about any queens or kings or performers kind of more local to your area? Obviously, you're in the Midlands, we're in Newcastle, and we want to spread the love.
Spread love.
God, that's awful. Ugh.
We want to say
that.
We want to spread the love and the joy and the happiness.
I just want to increase infection rates across the UK.
Oh, absolutely. Corona, STIs, whatever you've got, just spray forth thy seed. Well, so there's an event called Glitterfy Presents. It's actually based in Manchester, but Manchester's so close to Birmingham. It's like a couple of quid on a coach, and I go there a lot. But the two people that run it, Glitter King and Mystify, they're wonderful, and so they've performed in Birmingham stuff. And I think Mystify is, you know, being from the Midlands, it's local here. But I love the event because it's called Glitterfy based on their names, and it kind of embodies that perfect mix of literally glitter and horror. Glitter King is one of the kindest souls. Covered it, he's so kawaii. They're so kawaii and cute, but also they've got a real edge to them.
Does Glitter King sell glitter as well?
Yes, Glitter King Cosmetics.
I think I know who you mean.
And the Mystify really embodies doing the more horror and with an added sense of musical theatre and things. I think they're worth checking out because their event is a sort of independent, alternative event in Manchester. And Manchester's got a fantastic scene, but it's very established. And when scenes become established, they can't be rocked or changed as much. So it's hard for new things to happen, especially things that are a bit alternative and queer-minded.
Yeah.
And there's this one I've really enjoyed seeing grow and develop because they're two, you know, talented artists who are trying something. But yeah, Birmingham as a whole, it's always had a bit of a punky scene that isn't scared to have horror or weirdness. And it's always been quite diverse, especially in the last 5-6 years in terms of gender and all sorts. It's been very much the norm. It's also got quite a long-standing history of things that are a bit alternative. So Twiggy is a Birmingham drag artist. They've been doing drag for, I want to say, decades. Their drag does not look the norm, whatever the norm is. Like they've been doing it for so long, but it's so wonderfully different and creative, and it's kind of, I don't know, is it horror? I guess it is in a way, but it's alternative. It's punk. It's pure punk in that way. The outfits they make, the headpieces, the complete transformations. Twiggy's someone who's inspired me non-stop because they make all of this stuff themselves and they just do it. They just get on with it. They have fun. They make the iconic outfits. They're someone who definitely look up. They're so kind as a person. I mean, I'm so drawn to people that are just nice. When they're nice, I suddenly think their drag goes up a level.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Because we know what drag can do. It can change. You know, you can see drag and then you find out someone behind it isn't as wholesome for the community or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's a bit of a shame. But I love when people are they look apart and then you find out that they're as deep as the sort of depth that their look goes to. That really excites me. So yeah, Twiggy, and I got to plug the Glitterfy event because it's a new event. New events are hard to sort of get off the ground, and I kind of really.
When is it?
It's usually a monthly one held in Manchester.
Oh, is it monthly? So what we'll probably do then is, this is like off script, what I'll probably do is I will go and search dates and all this kind of stuff, and I'll release your episode depending on when it is. Are they doing like online stuff?
Well, no, they've kind of paused that. That's a bit of a shame because I think it's just been easier not to.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But yeah,
well, maybe I can link them up when we post your episode anyway.
Yeah, they've got a page and things, whatnot.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I really like those two because they're good souls and they're trying to combine what I like, a bit of camp and a bit of horror.
Perfect.
And that stands out, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely some people we can have a look into. I think it's funny what you said when you spoke about kind of the people's aesthetic and then what they're actually like. Because if you look at, and this is very deliberate, my aesthetic is Pebble is a basic slut. That's very much my aesthetic. It always has been since I've started. But for me, it's because it would have been so obvious if I'd went alternative. I'm covered in tattoos, I've got heavily stretched ears, I'm heavily part of the alternative scene. So for me, it was kind of pushing myself in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
By going to this like hyper femme, hyper kind of Barbie, unnatural woman. But then I get joy then because maybe 3 times a year I get to do a more alternative type performance where I can maybe use music that I listen to more regularly at home and things like that. I think the last one I done was a Silent Hill one. Yeah, so started as I can't remember her name, but started as the mother from Silent Hill and then revealed to one of the nurses.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get what you mean when you kind of can look at people and then when you find out more about them, it's like, oh, actually, you're somewhat different to what I expected from your drag character or your drag persona.
Yeah, and I think it adds the depth, and also it's good for people to be exposed to that sort of thing because because if drag is someone's individual sort of expression, their take on their art, and they're exaggerating or playing with a part of themselves, you've then got to respect that and really take joy that someone may be doing something very different for themselves to make it different to what they normally do.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think with yours, there's an edge that comes through, and that edge can be more powerful than making it so overt. So the edge, when you've got some of the tattoos or your ears coming through, I think that creates an edge, and those edges can speak very loudly about that person, that there's a bit more going on. They're sort of signposts as opposed to it just saying, yeah, I'm a punk rocky drag queen. I do, it's like, okay, well, where's the dimension? Where's the depth? If you're not, that's what we thought,
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you have anything that you would like to plug, dear?
Well, that's very, very flirtatious. I didn't know it's going to be that kind of podcast.
Ooh, this is a horrible time at night.
Yeah. I am quivering. I don't know. People look at my stuff. Like, share, say.
Where can we find your stuff?
Defeat the algorithms.
Oh God, I know.
My surname is spelled awkwardly, but I'm sure you can fix that. But I generally post things on, Instagram and Facebook tend to be the main things. I had a little dally with TikTok, and then I've started going back to it recently. But yeah, I try and keep things interesting online. I try to just keep them as a collage of what I do. I've got my creepy creatures, Paul's creepy creatures, which I make. I love making them. I then post them on Etsy to sell. That's a nice little thing that I like doing. I genuinely want to plug that because I like making them. They're therapeutic. I know how Sid in Toy Story felt. I know why he did it. Just misunderstood. He just wanted to escape the horrors in their mind.
Exactly.
So they're the things to plug. And anything that I do, I post about, whether that's scare acting things, whether that's some shows I'm in or whatever. And I try to just keep up that presence of what I do. So it's, easy to find, supposedly. And I'm sure that, I stop this, I think of things I have actually got coming up I should plug. But to be honest, it's weird in a pandemic because I'm kind of like, there are things to plug that I will be doing that I can't be doing until the pandemic's over.
I feel you. I completely feel you. Yeah, but obviously we'll link up to everything. Yeah. We'll link up to Paul's Creepy Creatures and to your own profiles and stuff when we post the episode as well. So everybody will just follow it as a click-through link. But, well, Paul, listen, thank you very much for joining us this week.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
Well, I suppose I should say thank you to you both.
I mean, it would be polite.
Sorry, wrong chat, thinking out loud. No, thank you so much for asking. It's great. And it's really nice to have, this is, I find it difficult to give sort of compliments and stuff because I'm always so scared they don't sound real. But it's nice to have that queer application onto sort of horror and stuff like that. And that may just be my own mindset because I like horror and I like people taking the deep dive and angles on it. But yeah, I really like that, especially like the Halloween one, especially at the end when it's looking at, when it goes, so what is the queer insight we can have there? And I think you actually found out more than you first thought, perhaps, because you said, well, what can we be said? Oh, maybe she was a lesbian, or maybe this. And then it's suddenly going to, actually, maybe it's, there's more to it about. So yeah, I it's a good podcast. So keep up the good work, lads.
Thank you.
But no, thank you for having me and my tangents and rambles and whatnot. Yeah.
You can follow the podcast at A Horrible Time Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow your host Anthony at
Anthony Detro on Twitter and at Diamond Hardskin on Instagram. You can follow Pebble at
It's Pebble Dash on Instagram and Famous Cunt on Twitter. Recording by Pebble and Anth, mix and mastered by Pebble Dash. Artwork by Graphic Design.